You're 42. Your paycheck comes at 8:07 a.m. You're sitting in the conference room pretending to listen to your boss as he outlines his quarterly plans. Your phone vibrates briefly under the table. Transferred a card. $3,260 after taxes. 10 years ago, that amount would have turned your entire week around. Today, you stare at the screen for 2 seconds and turn your phone over. Because by lunchtime, your portfolio has already earned more. No one in the room knows about it. The boss doesn't know. The colleague next to you, worried about the rising rent, doesn't know either. The badge around your neck is still there. You still answer emails. You still nod when words like synergy and urgency are mentioned. But the money that keeps you going no longer comes from this building. The building remains the same. You're just a different person inside it. You are 26. Salary is $46,000 per year. After taxes, insurance, and pension contributions, which you don't really understand, you end up with $1,480 every 2 weeks. It feels like real money for about 4 days. Then the rent is $920. Car insurance is $132. Groceries are $75 if you save, and $125 if you stop pretending you can live on rice and eggs forever. By the second Friday, the amount is small again. Not zero, just one that makes you keep quiet. One February evening, you open a brokerage account. Not out of confidence, but out of fatigue. You buy 280 shares of an index fund with a name you can't pronounce. A confirmation appears on the screen. You stare at it as if something should happen. Nothing happens. No sound, no applause, no sense of becoming an investor. The 280 simply moved from your checking account to a place you can't accidentally spend. 3 months later, the account pays you $3.60. You see this on Tuesday morning before work. The dividend has been accrued. $3.60. You laugh once. Not because it's funny, because it's absurd. You earn more just by walking from your car to your desk. But then your thoughts take a different turn. You didn't go there for the money. You didn't answer the letter for it. You didn't sit in the meeting. You didn't smile at the boss. You didn't trade an hour of your life for it. You were sleeping. And you still got paid. At lunch, your colleague Maxime takes out a new smartphone. He places it face down on the table, cameras facing up so everyone can see. He asks what you'll spend your bonus on. You say nothing interesting. He replies, "What are you doing?" Go on and live normally. You nod. In the evening, you transfer another 280 to the account. Work remains work. You're 29. Your salary is now $58,000. Not rich, not poor. That sweet spot where you stop dreading every second and start wanting what's not quite within your means yet. Account balance is $36,000. Most of it comes from your salary, some from dividends. A little from the market itself while you were busy with other things. The figure doesn't impress anyone, so you don't tell anyone. In April, investments bring in $141 per month. You look at this figure while standing in line at the grocery store. Internet costs $68. Mobile service, $60. Together, $128. For the first time, one small piece of your life has been paid for without labor. Not symbolically, for real. The Wi-Fi you use in the evenings, the phone in your hand, the calls, the maps, the late-night searches you call research, but are really just anxiety. Your shares paid for it. You're standing there with a basket, chicken, coffee, and some cheap laundry detergent. The cashier says, "Next." You step forward. The world looks exactly the same. That's the strange thing. Nothing has changed enough for others to notice, but some things have changed enough for you to feel them. That summer, Maxime gets a promotion. He celebrates on the rooftop bar, where a cocktail costs $17. Everyone raises their glasses. Someone says, "Well earned," and he does. But later in the bathroom, you hear him talking quietly on the phone. He says his card is almost maxed out, but the bonus is coming any minute. You wash your hands longer than necessary. When you leave, Maxime laughs again. He looks ahead. You look behind the facade. You drive home in the same car. The bill pays you again next month. Work remains work. You are 32. Your account balance is $118,000. You know this number because you check it every Sunday morning with your coffee before anyone else writes, before the week starts tearing you apart. Investments bring in about $480 a month. Sometimes more, sometimes less. $480. A car payment you don't have. Half the rent. Groceries you don't even need to calculate. The difference between a flat tire and a disaster. You don't feel rich. You don't feel cornered anymore. These are two different things. They're changing health insurance at work. Everyone's angry. The deductible has gone up. The premium has gone up. People are standing around the water cooler, comparing numbers like survivors comparing scars. You're angry too. But underneath the anger is something you don't say out loud. If this job disappears, you won't disappear with it. Not right away. Not right away. The thought is terrifying. It feels like a betrayal, like you're betraying a system that's been allowed to control your fear. In November, your boss asks if you'd like to apply for the management track. More money, more attention, more weekends eaten up by work. The previous version of you would have agreed without even hearing the last sentence. The current version asks for time to think. The manager blinks. It's clear from his face. People at your level should want more. At home, you're crunching numbers. The increase is $13,500 a year. After taxes, about $800 per month. Investments are already bringing in more than half of that amount, and they don't ask for a single evening in return. You're not going to the track. At the New Year's office party, Maxim says you're being petty. He's wearing a 5,800 watch. He mentioned the price twice. You smile. You give him the full attention of the room. Your account, meanwhile, buys another share while you sleep. Work remains work. You are 35. Salary is $74,000. Portfolio, $298,000. The market was kind. You were boring. Boredom is starting to look like a strategy. The quarterly payment arrives in March, $1,940. You look at her at the kitchen table before work. Tomorrow's salary will be $1,970. For the first time, the machine you built silently pays almost as much as the company does for 2 weeks of your life. You expect delight. It doesn't come. A strange heaviness comes. Because now you know, work isn't magic. It's just another source of income, loud, scheduled, dressed up in meetings and performance reviews. Important, yes, but no longer sacred. That morning, you're stuck in traffic behind a white SUV with a dealer license plate. The driver is yelling into the phone. Your car is 9 years old. The passenger window squeaks when you close it. You've been meaning to fix it for 6 months. You're thinking about upgrading to a new one. Now you can afford it. This is a new feeling. You could walk into a dealership, sign the papers, and become someone no one cares about anymore. You spend your evenings looking at cars all week, not because you need to, but because part of you wants proof that the years have meant something, that you're more than just a person with numbers on a screen and the same jacket since 2019. On Friday, Maxim pulls into a parking lot in his new electric crossover. People gather. They ask about the range, the screen, the acceleration. Maxim comes alive under the attention. You sit in your old car and stare for 10 seconds longer than you should. You're almost ready to book a test drive that evening. Your finger hovers over the button. Then you remember the letter about the quarterly payment still sitting in your inbox, $1,940. You close the dealership app. You open the brokerage app. You reinvest. Nobody notices. It worries less and less. Work remains work. You are 37. This is the year when the story stops looking pretty. The market falls in January, then again in February. By March, the portfolio has fallen $79,000 from its peak. $79,000. More than your annual salary at the start. On paper, it's gone, but the paper weighs on your shoulders when you actually look at it. Dividends are lower too. One fund is cutting its payout. Another is delaying distributions. The number you trusted is starting to behave like a living thing, and living things can disappoint. At work, Maxim hears conversations about the market and laughs. That's why I don't play in the casino. You don't answer. You sit at your desk and update your account 3 times an hour, as if surveillance could control the damage. You don't sleep well that night. You think about everything you didn't buy, about the trips you turned down, about the apartment you never got around to changing, about the car that still creaks with the same glass. For the first time in years, the question returns. Maybe you were just lucky. Maybe it was all an illusion. Maybe you traded a clear life for a number that disappears faster than breakfast. You're having lunch with your mother on Sunday. She asks if everything is okay. You say you're stressed at work. It's not a lie. It's just not the whole truth. On the way home, you stop at a traffic light outside a car dealership. The sun beats down on the row of new cars, as if they were ready-made answers. You can quit this game. Buy proof. Turn the invisible into something everyone will understand. The light turns green. You continue driving. Next Friday, you invest again. Not because you're feeling bold, but because the rule has never been believe only when the number goes up. Work remains work. You are 40. The spreadsheet opened at 11:51 p.m. on Thursday. You weren't planning on staying up late. You just wanted to check the year's results before bed. Salary for the year is $82,000. Less after taxes, even less after insurance. Investments brought in $86,900. Dividends, interest, realized profits, distributions. Some of it is cash, some is reinvested, some is taxed, so you'll complain in April. But the number is here. $86,900. You read it once, then again. Then check the formulas, because you don't trust quiet joy. The formulas are correct. For the first time in your life, your money earned you more than your job paid you for being the man in the chair. You lean back in your chair. The music isn't playing. No one's knocking on the door. The room doesn't change color. The refrigerator hums. A car drives past the window. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor drops something heavy. This is what a turning point sounds like. Almost nothing. In the morning, the alarm goes off at 6:35. You get up, take a shower, put on the same shirt as always, go to work. At 9:16, your boss asks if you can stay late for a client. For 10 years in a row, the yes has been outright before the question is even finished. This time, 3 seconds pass, not because you're angry, because you're weighing something new. You say yes, but this yes is different. It's no longer fear masquerading as politeness. Work is still work. You just choose it now. This is what no one explains in advance. The weird part is that you're not quitting. People have the wrong idea about that moment. They imagine a dramatic resignation letter, a box on their desk, a farewell letter, a walk through the office under the gaze of their colleagues, as if you were becoming free in front of everyone. It is a fantasy needed by those whose story still belongs to work. True freedom is quieter. True freedom is sitting in the same meeting and suddenly noticing that the room has lost weight. The same invitations on the calendar with the same false urgency, but something inside no longer leans forward as before. Rumors of a reorganization are swirling. People are whispering around the printer. You hear fear in their voices because you remember what it was like when he lived in your own. You feel compassion, not superiority. Never superiority. At lunch, Maxim says he needs a raise. Everything is getting more expensive. The mortgage, the car, private school, the trip he's already booked, a life that looks successful from the outside. He asks if you're afraid of layoffs. You answer, a little. This is the kindest lie you tell all year. He nods as if you're in the same boat. You're not. A building remains a building, but one of you still needs it to stay alive. You're 42 again. Payday comes at 8:07 a.m., $3,260 after taxes. By lunchtime, the portfolio had grown by $3,950. By the end of the week, some of it might return. You already know that. You're no longer naive. But the greater truth doesn't change because of 1 week. A car is worth more than a salary. What you quietly built now has more power than the place that taught you to ask for permission. That day, your boss calls you into his office. He closes the door with the gentleness that managers do when they want the moment to seem serious. He says there might be changes next quarter. He says nothing has been decided. He says your work is appreciated. You watch his lips form words that 10 years ago would have shattered your nervous system. You feel your body brace itself for panic. It doesn't come. You nod. Ask 2 reasonable questions. Leave the office. At your desk, you open a blank document and type 1 line. I don't have to be here. You look at it. Then you delete it. Not because it's not true, Because evidence is no longer needed. You're driving home at the same time as everyone else in the evening. Brake lights ahead. The radio is on low. A paper cup of coffee in the cup holder. Nothing in this picture resembles freedom. That's why most people don't notice it. Freedom doesn't always look like a beach. Sometimes it looks like a traffic jam that no longer has control over you. Sometimes it looks like a meeting that can no longer frighten you. Sometimes it looks like a paycheck that used to be your driving force, but is now just another deposit into your account. You park near the house and sit for a minute. Remember those first 3.60. You remember Maxime's phone on the dining room table, the roof of the bar, the car dealership app, the traffic light outside the dealership, the 79,000 drop, the night the spreadsheet finally told the truth. For years you thought the goal was to stop working. It wasn't like that. The goal was to stop depending on work for who you are. On the day when investments outpace salaries, no one applauds, no one notices. You still have letters in the morning. But something quiet has ended. The race between your time and your bills is over. A building remains a building. Work remains work. You're just free before you even leave.